Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kevin Lee Social. Thank you for tuning in. What initially began as an 8-part series interviewing entrepreneurs to share and inspire how they've successfully pivoted during COVID-19, I have decided not only to continue this series, but also to expand on the scope to understand and learn about people's craft, philosophy, the challenges they face in the industry, and their favorite failures that have helped shape them to become who they are today. By going deeper and understanding different thought leaders, businesses, and industries, the idea is to help cross-pollinate ideas applicable in your life and inspire action in this new norm we live in. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Today is a special episode. It is my anniversary episode. And luckily and fortunately, I have a longtime friend, Daniel Narvaez, helping me out today. Dan has put his hand up and is helping me with a reverse interview today. So today, I am the interviewee, and I hope to share more about my life and what I'm working on. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Hey, Dan, my man. How are we today?
Amazing, sir. It's getting this fabulous morning started. It's a bit cold outside, though, so I'm not really enjoying that.
Thank you so much for taking up this offer for doing the anniversary episode. It's an absolute honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Mate, the pleasure is all mine. As they say, fun ideas generally start from ridiculous statements. So here we are.
Yeah, really, I don't know where this is going to end up, but I'm looking forward to whatever comes my way.
Yeah. We'll see where we go. Let's get started. A lot of people know, or a lot of us, your readership, your listenership, and people around you a lot about you. As I like to describe you, you're Kev, the friend, the small business owner, serial entrepreneur, mentor, and generally the most smiling man in the room. You seem to have lived a pretty colorful life up until now, studying, starting lots of things from degrees to martial arts to life in health, starting businesses in trend leading and food and beverage. But a lot of people don't know the background to all of that. So can you please share with us a little bit about yourself and how you became to become the notorious Kevin Lee?
Man, I love the way you talk. It's so cool. If only I could be half as cool as you, I'd be happy. Let's start. I was born and bred in Sydney, and I grew up in a housing commission area called Warwick Farm. And that's as far as my memories go back. And I went to Warwick Farm Primary School, grew up with my mother, my brother, and my sister. So parents were divorced. And growing up, during those years, I was moving around a little bit in terms of sleepovers at friends' places or staying with certain families for a period of time. Yep. And generally, they were my family friends, as in my mother's friends, or it was my friends. It wasn't particularly uncomfortable or anything. I enjoyed the stayovers for the periods of time that I was living at their places. Taught me a lot because I hanged with Samoan families, Filipino families, Australian families, Chinese families, Vietnamese families, and each family taught me a different culture or understanding or way of life, which has always been interesting to me. I think it's given me that adaptability that I have now in my older years.
Yep.
And I moved schools, different schools from Gardeners Road all the way to Eastern Suburbs, Waverley College Boys.
Yep.
And as fate would have it, I ended up in Cabramatta, where the majority of Vietnamese immigrant families.
Yeah, full circle.
So I finished my high school there in Cabramatta High School. Then I went on to study mechanical engineering. I studied that for a couple of years, got an internship, found a few jobs, realized that the industry wasn't for me, wasn't what I expected it to be. And much to my family's dismay, I left everything and I flew my best friend at the time and myself to Japan. And we got into the grey market importing business. So took a bit of savings, flew over there, bought whatever we thought we could flip for $1 or $2 back in Sydney. Thought we knew the car scene at the time. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey.
It starts.
Yeah. And that's where I met you a few years after that. So what started as a grey market importing business magically or unusually transformed into a design printing company.
Yep.
Which I think is a funny story because it started off as a bit of a fun print thing that was going on at the time. Ordered some shirts from Japan, Uniqlo, which Australia didn't have at the time. We were the first ones to get it in. We did some prints on it, sold it to the car guys in the industry. And next thing you know, people started coming up and go, "Hey Kev, could you print this for us? Could you print this for our group? Could you print lanyards or stickers and everything?" And quickly pivoted and got into that.
The answer is always yes.
Because it was making some coins. So I was like, all right, let's do that. And so I learned how to use that kind of software and worked on designing little stuff for other people and for the groups. And it was a fun thing. It went on for a while. We started to expand and eventually it got on some bigger contacts. Then came a point where things were comfortable. I was in a very fortunate position. I had a lot of support. And I asked my childhood friends if they wanted to open a cafe. It's one of those things where if you're a coffee fanatic and enjoy cafes and you have that dream to have your own space one day.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any idea. We didn't really have experience at all. But we had the support back then and we thought, okay, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it now, else we're never going to do it. Hence the journey into opening a cafe. And it wasn't just any cafe back then, which we met. It was a specialty cafe. And what specialty meant was, we were using very expensive coffee. We were like the early adopters of the hand pouring method, where we'd have a range of single origin coffees you could pick from a list and we would hand pour it for you. And I got deep into doing competitions with it and competing state and nationally and creating my own waters. It's pretty bizarre. Yes, people do competing coffee and pour coffee. Yeah, it's weird. But then from there, we wrapped up after the 3-year mark when the lease ended up there, split ways with my childhood friends, and I combined with a new partner to continue the journey in Darlinghurst.
Yep.
And that's where we are at the moment. And fast forward about a year in, about a year and a half in, COVID started to happen.
Yeah.
And during that time, we decided that maybe it was time for a rebrand. And now we have the Mayflower, Sydney, which is a cafe restaurant.
Yeah.
And that takes us to the present moment in business-wise, I guess. Yeah.
You just managed to compress 15 to 20 years of your life into few sentences. It's amazing. Let's pick up where you just left off. It's really interesting. Obviously, I've been fortunate to have gone through that coffee journey with you because that's where we met at the inception of Brewistas, originally in Glebe, and then obviously moving into Darlinghurst. And then during the latest period, I was also fortunate enough to be able to come down and drink your coffee because that's the only thing we're allowed to do for most of last year. You mentioned that there was a pivot. COVID and the pandemic that struck us all had a big effect on all businesses. And I'm assuming this is something that forced your hand, or would you say it was a plan that was already happening, or was it something that where you actually had to look at the landscape or the current landscape that was in front of you and actually work to move forward? How did you cope with COVID, and how have you since adapted your business or your life to move forward from there?
It was a combination of factors that you mentioned. It was renovations were in the plan. We did need a push in sales, a revamp. We needed to increase our business.
Yep.
And at the time, when we were thinking of changing a few things, eventually it evolved into this massive rebrand. And the rebrand would change the whole culture of what it used to be. But it's what it needed, because in the cafe restaurant scene, or at least the cafe scene, you're either one or the other, as in you're either a local cafe where lots of locals come by, or you're more destinational where a lot of other people from different suburbs come visiting you. They come to seek you out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And when we were originally in Glebe, we were quite a destinational cafe because we had a lot of luck as well with people at the markets on the weekend. And that was when the food blogger scene was exploding. So we had a lot of people coming out to explore. So not only did we have locals, but we also had a great deal of destinational customers. And then moving into Darlinghurst, we started off building mainly local base. We didn't make a huge unique offering to make it a destinational place for customers to come to.
Yep.
And the shift for the rebrand was to make it more destinational. People needed to come and seek us out. And it was a gamble because although we were planning to do it, COVID happened, and if we do it, is it going to go backwards? Because people were cutting back, they were restricting.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going smaller, they were downsizing, or they were worried, or they were closing up.
Yep.
And we were ready to redo this whole expensive revamp.
Yeah.
Hope to get even more people coming in. And with our luck, and with COVID not being particularly too heavy in Sydney compared to the rest of the world,
Yep.
we were able to get lots of customers towards the direction we wanted. We got a whole brand new customer base. We did lose a lot of locals, which was a bit of a shame, but it is what it is when the locals are starting to have to wait because other people from other suburbs are coming in. I get it. They get sick of it, but we had to do what we had to do to make it work for us as well.
Of course. As they say, we've got to be able to open the doors.
Yeah.
That's all right. You can open next door next year. Mate, I was one of those guys, like I said, I'd pop in and get my coffee and I'd be able to see your face wearing our masks to make sure we were doing okay. So it's commendable that you've been able to step out of COVID. And like you mentioned, many businesses were closing around us, unfortunately. Losing locals happened everywhere. Some people were moving away. Thanks everyone that stayed. It was great. But yeah, it's really cool to see. Now, and that journey is wild. And I use the word fortunate, and I hope all the readers, all the listeners hear this, because I'm one of those guys that gets to literally talk to Kevin whenever I choose to, which is ridiculous. It's very selfish. But I guess what I'm alluding to there is, segueing to the next step. Mate, your educational journey has been a long, and I'm assuming somewhat calculated. There's not many people in the world that I know that are as well read in the areas of self-wealth, self-health, the mindfulness space, and also in overall business workings. I don't really need to reach far to ask you for a book to read or a podcast to listen to, a quotable quote that'll get me along my way. Along the way, like pushing last year aside, what are some key lessons that you think you've learned through the growth of baristas, your overall life, your martial arts learnings, or the great import market scene?
Wow, Dan, that's a loaded question, my friend. Let me see. Let me calculate how long that'll take to answer. About 2 years. Get started. I, growing up, was quite hungry to grow. Naturally, I think I wanted to learn more. I wanted to expand more. And I wanted to expand out of my shoes in the area I grew up in. And one of the ways that I realized that education was the way. And I guess one of the catalysts in my life is my mentor, Pauline Nguyen. She introduced me to the world of Tony Robbins, the world of spiritual entrepreneurship. She opened the gateway for me. And I would say that was probably about at least 6 or so years ago now.
Yep.
And once the floodgates were opened, it allowed me to continue to explore. And that's why you are a great person to talk to this about, because you've seen my journey from, I wouldn't say the beginning, but during my most important transitional phases.
Yeah, interesting.
When I first met Dan, I was powerlifting. I came across his website on a broadsheet article or something along those lines online. And I thought, man, I've got to go see this guy to get some Schmidt clothes. I need to get some custom clothes. And it was all about the wearing the nice clothes and driving the nice cars and having the latest and greatest in tech and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I went to seek Dan at the time and obviously hooked me up. And the shameless plug is coming later for Dan. I'll hold that out until later. And essentially, I was very material based. I was highly driven by significance and certainty, which is not a very good combination. Understanding that my inner desires were driven by significance and certainty, I realized that was quite a vicious cycle. The need to be certain that I had things, the need to be certain that I was feeling significant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I learned from Six Human Needs from Tony Robbins. Pauline invited me to. Started at UPW, and then eventually we did the whole lot. We did Date with Destiny, we did Business Mastery Advance in Amsterdam. And we had traveled with other friends to explore and learn different modalities and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So that was what ticked it off for me. And I went through a big transformational phase, lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of relationships, lost businesses, lost a lot of things. I guess that's a shedding part of that phase. I had to let go of a lot of things and start to rebuild from the inside out.
Beautiful.
I realized there's a lot of things I need to work on. And if things were going to change and if my inner happiness was going to change, I had to work from the inside. Not that meant that I didn't continue to disappoint people or continue to make problems and challenges. I still did. I still disappointed many people and made many mistakes, probably till this day, and I probably will continue to do that. But I am working on it. I'm trying to become more aware of it and learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And so from there, the next shift started when I went to I wouldn't call it, you can call it like a festival, because Vishen Lakiani from Mind Valley called it a fest at the time.
Okay.
And it was a conference held in Greece.
Yes.
And I think at the time they were only taking in a limited amount of people, and you had to be a certain caliber of an entrepreneur to make it in. My mentors made it in. I didn't apply, but they gave me their +1. I wouldn't have made that.
So you jumped the fence, basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it that way. A guy who owns a cafe gets in? Nah. And the theme at the time was called biohacking.
Yes.
And so this was about 5 years ago now.
Yep.
And it was an amazing event because during the day you'd meet all these change makers, all these amazing speakers who are now trending, very trending, like Dave Asprey, King of Biohacking, Dr. Mark Hyman, who's obviously very popular at the moment.
Yep.
And basically you could rub shoulders with them. You could sit at a lunch table with them, and they would speak at the front and then come sit next to you. It was a very close event in that sort of way. Wow. And man, they knew how to party. Like they held these conferences during the day, and they just did these massive takeover parties in the evening. And this was in Greece, man. This is amazing. Had such a great time.
Like summer in Greece, biohacking sounds good to me.
It was incredible. And coming back from that, a lot of things had shifted again. It's okay. So now I was really interested in the biohacking scene and started to learn more about, okay, how do you shift your health? And it's not just health, but it's also mental health and a variety of things.
Yeah.
So started off with a kind of self-development kind of journey into a biohacking scene. Started understanding the physiology a lot more, learning, going down these different rabbit holes. And another journey that we went on was, down the Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and Dr. Greg Braden when we visited Canada. They're holding a conference over there. And that was a lot about bridging science and spirituality. And so that was another element again. So it was element to biohacking which is physiology, and now from physiology bridging into spirituality, but without the nonsense. It's a lot more broken down and in an understandable way.
Yeah.
And that has been a continued journey of mine over the past few years as well, down to developing habits of consistently reading and listening to all these, to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going through right now, because it's some pretty exciting times coming forward. And from there, as I developed a meditation course, if you like to call it, called Beyond Meditations.
Yep.
And you were there
because you weren't busy enough, right?
And you were there right from the beginning, Dan. You saw it,
Yeah.
what it was. It was downstairs at the little cafe, and I was sharing with a couple of locals. And now, fast forward, we're running at least 3 classes a week.
Yeah.
We've got trained teachers, we've got a space, and it's pretty incredible.
Totally.
So that's where the learning journey came about.
Yeah, beautiful. Mate, you said one thing, and I'm going to lead there because it just stuck with me. Spiritual entrepreneurship. It's a term I've never heard you use before, weirdly enough, because we talk about this often. The word entrepreneur generally leads everyone to just think big money, fast money, try and take over the world kind of thinking and business. And spirituality is obviously something that a lot of people are afraid to touch on because they worry that automatically means religion. You seem to talk about this space a lot and champion it in your own life. And I can tell just by the way you speak about it and how passionate you are that it's created a change, a significant change. Guys, when I met Kev, like he alluded to, he was a power lifter going on pushing for nationals and was quite competitive and really good at it. But then when he disappeared from my life for a couple of years, he came back and I said, mate, what happened to you? He'd lost like 15, 20 kilos. and it was a different person. Now I know what happened. He went to Greece, found a new different crew, and completely changed his life in a good way, in a really good way. But again, apart from like changing your behaviors a little bit and impacting the way your business runs and the way you think with your workers and all that, what kind of positive impacts has this had on you, breaking from the significancy and the material and the certainty and then now being a lot more vision focused? Yeah, what has this educational journey done for you, do you think, as an overall?
With the spiritual entrepreneurship, that is all accredited to Pauline. She coined that term and she wrote a book about it, which I highly recommend to people, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur, which I'll put in the show notes for everyone.
Of course.
And how that has changed in the way I do things, quickly alluding to the weight losing factor. It was it was a combination of things, right? Stop powerlifting, getting into yoga, changing the foods that I was eating. It's a lot less inflammation. And that just gutted my weight so quickly.
Yeah, well.
Because when I was powerlifting, I was losing a lot of mobility, so stiff all the time, and I was eating in ginormous amounts of food, and I was in constant food comas and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it just wasn't the way to continue life. You shouldn't be living that way day to day for that way. So although I was strong, it was not a very healthy lifestyle for me at the time. And so moving forward, how things have shifted for me in the way that I look at life is I've become a lot more less competitive.
Okay.
And it's not less competitive in the way that I've lost drive to create or find purpose.
Yep.
It's losing the want to be the best in a certain field. Like I don't have the desire to feel significant in that particular space because I don't need it. I don't feel like I do need it anymore. For me now, things have shifted more about, I still set some pretty high bar goals for myself, and I still want to, go for some pretty incredible places and achieve amazing things. but it's not so much about the shiny star that I'm after in particular. At the
Yeah.
moment, I've noticed that the journey and the process is a lot more important for me. The friendships I make along the way, like yourself, and connections and the people. It's the who I become rather than what I acquire.
Yeah.
And the new skills that I learn along the way, I think those are a lot more valuable to me than
Yeah.
the shiny star goal at the end, which I'm not to say it's not important, because if you don't set that shiny star goal, you don't set that big, hairy, audacious goal,
Yeah.
you won't be able to move towards it. It's important to set it,
Course.
but it's not the be all or end all. The process is so much more important. So that's one way that has shifted a lot for me. Let go of the competitive side,
Yeah.
and I've focused more of that attention on the process and the journey
Yeah. Awesome.
rather than particularly the result.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Now, this is a personal question, really. Would you then believe that's super interesting? Dropping the competitive nature, would you then believe that it's then becomes a bit more competition with yourself because you're setting your own personal goal as opposed to chasing the little dangling carrot that somebody else has set for you?
Yeah, I guess you can say that. It's more
Yeah.
of competing with
Sorry,
your.
just to ad lib the competitive nature.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah, absolutely. It's more of competing with oneself.
yep.
Now you set yourself higher bars for yourself, and it's an example is I've gone back into powerlifting over the past 6 months, but with a very different nature. I'm not there to for the next national comp. I'm not there to take out the nationals.
Yeah.
I'm there to build strength for the long term. I want to be able to still have a 500 or 600 kilogram total at 60 years old, 50 years old. I want to be
Yeah.
able to outdo my grandkids when they're young and show them, basically I want to have the health and the strength to endure my old age.
Yep.
And that's the difference now. And so I set all these bars and goals still, but they're against myself.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, to confirm your question, yes, it is a competition with oneself.
Nice. Guys, he's a very humble guy. If you really want to see his gains, they're impressive. To watch a guy that hasn't powerlifted in 5 years to then go do what he's currently doing, I'll let you look it up for yourself. Kev alludes to his social handle will be in the podcast notes. Trust me, watch the stories; they're pretty cool.
Okay. I don't need too much. I get shy and my face gets red. I don't know.
You talk about the old age thing, which is really cool. Longevity and kind of bringing in good habits and good lifestyle routines. You speak about them, processes, routines, and getting things set right in order to get your day. What can you teach us about that? Is there a morning routine? Is there a night routine? Is it just a day to day? Do you have any set routine that you actually follow, or do you just make it up as you go along?
I do have morning and evening routines. I only have too many routines that people think, what the hell, Kev, you're a weirdo. And admittedly, I am. It's all about little wins, right?
Yep.
You read in self-help books all the time. It creates momentum. People share you make your own bed in the morning, stuff like that. If you tick off all these little small wins, it helps you gain momentum throughout the day.
Yes.
For myself, my morning routines, I wake up without an alarm. I don't set an alarm. So I allow my body to wake up when it needs to.
Yep.
That's sleep hygiene for me. And the first thing I start off with is gratitude practice. And you can call that a meditation. You can just call it a prayer, whatever you want to call it. Just start off with a couple of things that I'm grateful and thankful for. Then I move into a visualization process by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's more about visualizing your future that you're wanting to work towards. And essentially it's, creating those emotions and those feelings and the goal in your mind on a daily basis to keep you on track.
Yes.
And it also helps you activate your RAS system, which it's, basically it's RAS, so reticular articulating system.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where you're looking to buy a new car. Let's say you decide to get a green Mini Cooper, and you start searching on the market for it, then suddenly you start to see green Mini Coopers everywhere on the street.
Yeah, okay.
Or that you've never seen it. And so that process allows me to look for certain opportunities that are related to my goal that I visualize in the future on a day-to-day basis. After that, I do another type of meditation. It's more of a breathing exercise. I won't get into too much detail. And I do that for anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. So that's already about close to an hour gone, purely of different styles of meditation. Then I do I do Uber yoga, which is essentially mainly with the joints, wrists, elbows, knees, ankles, neck, mobility, shoulders, stuff like that. Upper spine. It helps prime my body for the day without excessive exercise. And then I have 3 week picks, sometimes 4, depends on how that with a bit of honey and some regular milk. And that's my morning start. Oh, actually, I skipped one part. I do a bit of reading as well. So I have a morning book and an evening book. And so I read a few pages of that in the morning.
Okay.
And then off to the races. That's my morning routine. Evening routine.
I'm exhausted just thinking about your morning.
Geez. Evening routine, I tend to take actually now that I think about it, evening routine, I normally take a warm shower, which means in the morning I take a cold shower. That's the other thing. In the evening, I take a warm shower, helps me warm up the body, so it allows it to cool down, helps me sleep.
Yeah.
I use the Theragun, which is this amazing massaging percussion gun tool that everyone should get onto. It helps me loosen up my muscles from the weightlifting in the day.
Yeah. Are you training every day?
I'm training 4 times a week at the moment.
Yeah, okay, cool. Nice.
And after Theragun, I'll do 5 minutes of Duolingo. So I'm trying to learn Korean at the moment. It's a great app to learn a new language. It gamifies the whole learning language process. And then I'll do some reading of another book. And then I will go to bed with a gratitude practice. And then a few different breathing techniques to help me settle into. Yeah, it's also a bit of a winding evening routine as well. But I do that every day and it helps me settle.
Yeah, okay. So basically what you're telling us all is that you don't sleep.
No. Absolutely. I sleep plenty.
Mate, that's amazing. It's amazing. You speak about, gratitude practices and visualizations and breathing and all that. You alluded to it earlier, how this became part of your practice after your time going to Greece and then doing some research and then moving in and starting beyond meditations. I want to touch on this because this is a space where we spend a lot of time together. You champion it, and I've been fortunate, felt the benefits of said practices. I made the statement at family dinner last night, and I said, guys, you got to try breathing. It's really good for you. And everyone started laughing because if we don't breathe, it's important, right? What can you tell? In less than 90 seconds, what can you tell us about the breathing and your meditation practices and your great gratitude and visualizations?
90 seconds? But I'll try.
or is this a follow-up? Is this a follow-up podcast?
The breathwork has been coming onto the scene quite a lot lately. One of my good friends, Brian Lai, was one of the first Wim Hof instructors in Australia. Now he's taking that movement into Hong Kong. And
cool.
The Wim Hof scene is quite big here. He's come over to Australia a couple of times. I've seen him. I've done his courses. So it's
have a listen to that podcast, guys. It's really interesting.
Yeah, Brian Lai, definitely check out the podcast I did with him. He's a very fascinating guy. Always learning lots from him as well.
Yeah.
And breathwork is a way that Brian shares that it supercharges meditation. It is a gateway into spirituality. It helps you tap into a state that traditionally would take you a lot longer to tap into without the breathwork.
Yep.
It allows you to go deep. And so using breathwork, combining it with meditations and visualizations, as we do at Beyond Meditations, a curated practice over years of learning and experience,
Yes.
is allows anyone and everyone to drop into a space that is unique for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
For some, it might be simply a bliss out, relaxing state.
Yep.
For some, it might be more of an inquiry or understanding, and for some, it might be a piece that they're working to resolve.
Yep.
So everyone deals with their own problems differently, and everyone
Yes.
experiences that experience differently as well. And
Yeah.
I started that off, and so that's your 90-second pitch. But now
You can't stop, guys. Like I'm telling you, we've spoken days about this stuff. It's cool.
to continue to riff on that is that you were there right from the beginning when I curated it all. I'd said, Dan, I put something together where you come check it out. You came down.
Right. Guys, I'm going to interrupt right here just for a second. Sorry. Kevin's forever making suggestions to me, and I don't know what in this world told me just to listen to him. So whenever he's like, hey, Dan, let's read this book, I'm like, yeah, sure. Sounds like a good idea. Hey, Dan, go like, jump into this puddle of water. Yeah, that sounds good. He's never asked me to do that, by the way. But when he called me one day and said, hey, Dan, do you want to try this? I don't even know how he recommended it. He's like, do you want to try this thing? I'm like, sure, what is it? Meditation. And that's all I knew. But I knew that he couldn't possibly be leading me astray. So I was fortunate enough to start on day one of this, or day one of the second part of this journey. Sorry, Kevin.
No. Oh, good. And it has been a journey, hasn't it, Dan? It's been
Yeah.
very interesting because we went from getting a couple of locals on board and them coming on a weekly basis to practice once a week, to that becoming a bit of a tight community of an open space for people to share what they're going through, or because meditation and breathwork allows you to open up a lot more. And then when you have a sacred space like that, everyone is a lot more open to sharing their experiences and what they're going through, and it became a really tight-knit community. And then COVID hit, and
Yeah, that's right.
you weren't allowed to. We had to move everything online, and we were quite fortunate. We did still have people coming online, and we had some newcomers that we became friends with until now that have stuck with us online. And at the time, also another group that came online was a seniors group. I do the practice with them every Monday night, and it's a beautiful piece. And I love connecting with them. They're so funny. The older you get, the less filters you have. It's amazing. And
we'll have that conversation offline.
And then as COVID started to ease off, an opportunity came up with our good friend Cara. She helped us with a space at the Nest in Redfern. Mm-hmm. And ever since we've placed it there, somehow the algorithms on Eventbrite just skyrocketed, and we've been back to back. And I think that's the proof of market validation for me.
Yeah, okay.
That this practice works. It wasn't a short process. It was 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
It wasn't sudden. Yeah, it had been on Eventbrite.
10,000 hours?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not like the group just suddenly grew. It was only probably a group of less than 10 for 2 years. Yeah. But we kept at it. We enjoyed the process. We found the value in it. And now we're oversubscribed on a weekly basis. We've had to expand classes.
Yeah.
People come once, twice, and then they call their friends, and then it fills up that class. We have to get a new class. So it's been an incredible journey in that, making that impact. But it's given me even more purpose to dive further into the mental health space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing, mate. That last word is perfect. You alluded to providing a meditation space during COVID, which I believe was extremely important. We're talking about a period, I think all of the listenership will agree, that really challenged our mental spaces and our own self-belief and the way that we were living, apart from moving into my next question. But thank you for allowing people to have a space where they could think mentally and really open up their minds. And more importantly, provide a coping mechanism, because those online classes were pretty cool. I know I wasn't missing one now. It's interesting though, watching people meditate in their lounge rooms. It's like, is that person lying on the floor? It's pretty cool. You mentioned purpose. So, purpose is a thing we speak about a lot, goal setting purpose, or you speak about a lot. You speak about it in your work and in the different projects that you're working on, and you speak about it in mindfulness practice. So I'm going to segue into what's coming up, because Kevin doesn't stand still for more than about 15 minutes. You turn your back and he's like, oh yeah, I got this new project started. You're like, seriously? Like, how? Tell me a little bit. And you just alluded to the fact that Beyond Meditations is growing and there's more people doing their thing. Plus you've got the cafe, plus you've got the restaurants. What's up? What's coming up? What are you excited about in moving into the second part of this year? What's 2021 got in line for you?
I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was so excited about what's coming. Because I couldn't go back to sleep, I started visualizing about, okay, what am I working on next? Where am I going to take things and what's coming? And since we were talking about Beyond Meditations, I'll start with that.
Yeah.
With Beyond Meditations, I mentioned purpose in the mental health space. And I'm a part of different neuroscience communities online, and I've connected with some amazing people recently, and I'm starting to understand the depth and the impact of everything. And we did talk about COVID and how a lot of people are going through anxiety, depression, and a lot of trauma at the moment. And we're very lucky in Sydney at the moment compared to other places around the world. But PTSD...
Just in our backyard, man, even...
Yeah, exactly. But PTSD comes after this, it ends, and it hasn't ended yet. We actually don't know where it's going to end.
No.
So the next couple of years is going to be very challenging for a lot of people, a lot of things that they need to deal with mentally. And I want to be in that space to help them. And one way, a moonshot that I've shared with you recently, is that I want to get into the tech startup space in that mental health industry. Look, it's a big shot, but if I can digitize it, gamify it, and democratize it, it would be a big game changer for a lot of people. It's going to be a wearable headband / app space.
Yes.
I won't share too much about it because it's still in the making, but that's something I'm really excited about working on over the next 5 to 10 years for sure.
You heard it first here, people. Watch this space.
The Mayflower is expanding this year. We've been in very fortunate positions. I have an amazing business partner who's helped me out and taught me so much through the process. We are expanding into the gallery / dining space, so museum. We've collaborated with some amazing artists. That I won't reveal here.
Yes.
We're opening up a new shop in St. Leonard's on the north side of Sydney. And we're going to have an installation of art projects there. And even I myself will be collaborating with a few artists working on some projection mapping. So
amazing.
You heard it here first. Check it out.
Oh, yeah, Kevin's not only a food and beverage expert, he's now an artist.
I'll throw that term very lightly. It's only a beginning journey for me, but I'm really finding that process interesting.
Amazing.
Something I want to work towards building over time. Negotiations with Melbourne, where I'm looking to possibly expand in another space over there. But look, it's all to come. And so let's start with the new space in St. Leonard's that we're really excited about. Up and coming, should be ready in early August, I reckon.
Cool. So real soon.
So yeah, at the time of this recording is June, so it's not too far away.
Yeah, mate, that's exciting. That's super exciting. So food and art in one space.
Yeah, I think that's something quite unique Sydney has yet to see. So.
Yeah, that's right. It seems to align with spirituality and experiential eating, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Knowing you, it'll have one of those elements in there. So, mate, that sounds super exciting. Let's jazz this up, man. Like, we're sitting here again. I can talk to you for years, but we've got to get a bit of energy inside us. Man, you said it just then, like, you have a 5-year plan, you got a 10-year plan. Something tells me you got a 50-year plan. I used to joke. I once asked this, and my response was, "Mate, I haven't got a 5-minute plan." Like, so, but I know you asked this question to your other guys, so I'm going to ask it to you. If you could send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
This is always a challenging one, even for and I know
No, you're the one that asks it. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
I'm going to steal a line from Sadhguru. He said, "Life is about the richness of experience and the impact of your activity." And that would be the only line.
Okay.
And that to me grounds me a lot about, again, referring back to the process, the journey,
Yes.
and about purpose, making an impact. So that ties it up for me.
Cool. I got nothing.
Like I said, I stole that from Sadhguru, so it's not. I steal everything from everyone. It's never my original work. That's the thing.
So, side notes, guys. What do they say? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, mate. That's amazing.
Another thing that I'm excited about, and that is with the Kepler course journey that we started.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, it was such a period to create, wasn't it? Everyone was put
nice.
on pause, and yeah, people had a bit more time to create things, and definitely use that time to start this podcast.
It's a good one.
And also start a ideation course where people go from ideas to reality. And it's not about making money fast or anything like that. No, I'm in no position to talk about making a lot of money. In a position though to talk about creating ideas, that's a different thing. Ideation. And it was a method and technique I learned from Tom Chi, who's the founder of Google X, co-founder of Google X, and he was the guy who created the Google glasses. He taught me several techniques, and I've combined it with a few other things that I've learned along the way, and I've packaged it up as an ideation course that, again, Dan helped me go through the beta phase. And
guys, that is where, to interrupt, that is where these concepts came about. But I'll let Kev talk more about that another time.
And so it's been such a great journey. It's gone through a couple of reiterations, and now we're moving on to the next few cohorts. I'm excited about releasing some new courses within those cohorts as well. It's an exciting space. It will combine with something that you're also a part of. That's why Dan's such a great person to talk about all these things to, is the Dreamscape incubator space, where we start to tackle lucid dreams and figure out how to use that state of consciousness to ideate or create.
Sorry, it's to interrupt. I keep interrupting. For our readership or Kevin's readership or listenership, these words and these statements that we said that are used, if you're not aware of them, sometimes come off as a bit weird. But there's nothing more natural and more normal than, I guess I used to throw around the term manifestation until I started to realize that a simple term like that is actually a lot broader than the buzzword that's used in general society. And then understanding how to actually get into those elements is so super cool. Like Kevin talks about visualization and the gratitude and the purpose and the spiritual journey. They literally can only need to take up 5 minutes of your time a day, which could just mean instead of being upset, you put a smile on your face, or you give Kevin a call and he actually says, "Hey man," and then all of a sudden you're smiling again because the guy's got a pleasant voice, or whatever it may be. It's really interesting hearing you talk about those things, because obviously now you're trying to bring these teachings, this course that you're saying, I'm assuming that you're trying to bring these teachings to the wider society or to more people.
That's right. Definitely to a lot of the students who are looking to expand and to understand the psyche on a deeper level. And it is more of an advanced technique or understanding, but that's if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you can go down that space.
That little one-liner, which was great, and that's let us segue into what's going on and what you're working on. It's cool. But a lot of this knowledge that you impart, you said you're borrowing, right? Where are you borrowing this from? I know that your personal library is quite extensive when it comes to the fields of all the things you've spoken about today. And asking you for your favorite book would be ridiculous because you're probably going to say favorite section of a library. If instead of asking for your one favorite book, if you could give us 3 of your favorite books or 3 of your must reads, what would they be?
Oh, geez. Another tough question, Dan. I got time to compute and compile 3 favorite books. One would be Awareness by Anthony DeMello. That is more of a spiritual book for anyone. I think it, regardless of what religious you are or not, I think there's so many key lessons. I'm often left completely mind blown after 2 pages, and I have to put it down and rethink about what he just talked about.
Yep.
Slaps you in the face every time. And whoa, okay, what just happened? That'd be one. Another book would be The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That's was recommended to me by a good friend, Christopher Sellers, who I hope he's listening to this podcast as well, 7 times. Don't take every single detail as fact. It's just a great...
I was about to say that.
The male and female psyche. It's an interesting read. And I think Pauline has made such an impact on my life. I'd like to recommend her book, and that would give people a good start and insight into understanding on that entrepreneurship journey, that it isn't all about the material. It isn't all about what you gain one after another. And there's a lot more depth to it. So I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, cool. Mate, on that word, I've been meaning to ask you, I was asked this question last night. So it's now part of my to ask questions. And
Sure.
we've been using that term entrepreneur a lot through this conversation. It's used a lot in day-to-day society. What would you, and now you're talking about being an artist or delving into the world of art and that kind of belief, which I'm sure 10 years ago wasn't in your life per se.
Not at all.
What do you think would be the difference between an entrepreneur, a business owner, and an artist?
They're all 3 very different hats, but they're all required to work together to make something happen. I think the artist is the one who's extremely passionate about their work, who's on the ground and cares extreme amounts about the product, the service, the item.
Yes.
You've got the business owner who's technically probably more involved in the day-to-day type business of running the business. The management side of things, the human resources side of things, staff and people. And then the entrepreneur who is probably less emotionally involved with the other side of things, but is more about distribution, connection, expansion. And probably more about the money side. If I was to separate those 3 roles into 3 different things.
Can you be all of them?
I think.
Or can someone be all of them? Sorry, this isn't a direct question.
Everyone starts off as being all of them. But it's also quite a challenge to do all 3 and expand at a rapid rate, or all 3. I think there's only so much of you that can go around and do things. Because of course, at the beginning, you love your product, your service, and what you're doing, and you have to wear all the hats to manage this and the accounting and everything.
Of course.
But then you also have to be the one that goes out and gets more business. But over time, as the team expands, I think it's also very important to then hone into one, particularly, or have different people in different roles. And not to say that you can never shift from one to the other. But it's good to experience all 3 different roles so you can understand when you put other people in those roles, you can be more empathetic and compassionate about what they're going through.
Cool. And you spoke about it before. Obviously, there's a letting go process, which you've spoken about, that you've gone through spiritually and mentally and through your practice. Now you've alluded to it again in letting go or shedding roles, I'm assuming, I guess would be the easiest way I'd describe it. How did you go through that process from being the budding young business owner to then the expanding dude to then where we are now?
It is an absolute challenge because, at the beginning, my ego was a big part of the way. Like I wanted to be everything. I wouldn't let go of the product because it had to be the coffee had to be at a specific level, but I also I wanted to manage the people, but then I also wanted to try to expand it.
Yes.
But at the time when the team gets bigger and you realize that you're not being very efficient at all. And as an entrepreneur yourself, you can attest that we are the cap of our own business. The reason why it isn't where it is not because of anything else but yourself.
100%.
You want it to be 10x, you have to be 10x.
Yes.
There is no other way. And
okay.
So moving from there to moving away from the product, and not to say that you don't care about the product no more, you're signing somebody else to build the product that is passionate about it. So that you can focus on more on the culture of the staff or understanding your books better, and then allowing somebody else to get to help you expand the business.
Yeah.
So leases or understand that way of business.
Yeah.
And in different projects you're in, you might switch roles again. That's okay. It's okay to keep jumping different roles. Like, Dan, you're an amazing entrepreneur. You've had Mr. And again, congratulations on your 7-year journey. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you, mate. That's very kind of you.
Dan owns Mr. in the Strand, and the Strand is a icon in the Sydney scene. The building is a heritage building that's been around for many years. It's not cheap to be in there, and you've got to be a top player to be in. He doesn't just run that. He's got a record label with his brothers, and like this guy never sleeps because he's up during the day doing this stuff, and he's out at night until late at night doing his record label stuff, and he's out at clubs, and he's in the know-how. He's the most dapper guy I know. I've lost my train of thought, but I might as well throw in this piece that I wanted to share before. If you're ever in the Strand, definitely go hit this guy up. The clothes that he's made for me 7 years ago, I still have today. And if anyone knows me, I wear the shit out of my clothes. I wear the shit out of my shoes. I wear the shit out of my pants until they break. And I haven't worn them for a while because I had lost a lot of weight, because at the time I did meet Dan, I was a powerlifter. But now that I've gained a lot of the weight back, I'll be wearing it again. So if that isn't enough of a testimony for you guys, definitely go hit him up.
I don't mind a shameless plug. That's very kind of you, my man. That's very kind of you. Oh, cool. Man, I think we've told the people what they want to hear. What do you reckon?
I think so.
Yeah. How do we reach you? Come on, man. Your name's on the blog, on the podcast.
Yeah, people can, I'll put all the notes in the show notes. Obviously, kevinleesocial.com, my website with the podcast. You've got my Instagram handle, Kevin Lee Social. I'm also Kevin Lee Social on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and I've got an audio newsletter that I've recently put out. Subscribe through on my main website at kevinleesocial.com. It's where I start to uncover certain phrases, notes that I've taken down, things that I've listened to, and I share that with whoever subscribes on a weekly basis. I record the quote, the sentence, the phrase, the passage, and I riffed on it for 30 seconds to a minute, and then away it goes. It's a bit of a weekly wisdom that I've gotten from someone else that has inspired me for action that I'm sharing on a weekly basis.
That's amazing. I'm sure I'm going to put the challenge through. I'm sure this will lead to an episode 2 one day.
Oh, mate, we'll do. Dan, you are the guy that I've picked to be my partner in this podcast. So from time to time, I'll have to call you up on it. And
guys, I hope you hear this voice of mine soon. This has definitely been a fun time. Again, I've alluded to Kevin and I coming up with this concept. I won't lie when I say it was a bit tongue in cheek and me being cheeky, which is what I generally do when I'm with Kevin. But one thing I should have known is if you challenge Kevin, he would generally challenge you back. And then the hunter became the hunted very quickly. My
Dan,
friend.
yeah, we're going to come back to you on this podcast for sure. And I have to get you on board and explore everything there is to know about the Mr. Daniel Narvaez brand.
And there we go. And then I got challenged. Great. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for all the info and all the tidbits, and more importantly, an insight into you. You were very generous with all the information on a general basis. And this podcast is testament to that, the network that you have around you and the people that you've surrounded yourself with. But thanks for giving us a chance to actually learn a little bit more about the man that is Kevin Lee.
Thank you so much, my man. I really appreciate you taking the time and effort out to do this for me. I wouldn't have it any other way for my anniversary episode. Thank you.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
Much love.
All love, man. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.